Hello, and welcome to today's diabetes webinar. My name is Catherine. I would like to introduce your first speaker for today, Donna Jacobs. Donna, you have the floor.
Catherine, thank you so much. Welcome everyone to Let's Talk About Health, a community conversation hosted by the University of Maryland Medical System. As Catherine said, I'm Donna Jacobs, and I will moderate today's program. Let's Talk About Health is a conversation series designed to do three things: increase awareness about important health topics, provide people with the tools they may need to maintain their health or improve their health, and then thirdly, to create more effective, meaningful, and memorable conversations between patients and medical providers. November is National Diabetes Month. As you may know, over 30 million people in the United States have diabetes. It's a persistent health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy, and it can cause other significant health problems over time. Here to speak to us today about this topic is Angela Ginn Meadows, and I'm happy to say she's one of Maryland's leading experts on diabetes. She's a good friend, and she is a frequent speaker on this topic. Angela is a registered nurse, a registered dietitian, and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She has always been passionate about health, wellness, obesity, and prevention. She graduated from Morgan State University with a Bachelor of Science in Food and Nutrition, where she holds honors. And she has since accumulated over 15 years as an expert in diabetes care and education. She presently serves as the director of the Baltimore Metropolitan Diabetes Regional Partnership for the University of Maryland Medical Center. She's earned many accolades and much recognition for her work. She's a scientific advisor for the Grain Foods Foundation, and she was a past national speaker for the Academy of Nutrition and Diabetics. She's been featured in numerous national publications, including Marie Claire, Food Network, Better Homes and Gardens, and Essence, just to name a few. Welcome, Angela. Before we start, there are a few housekeeping items I'd just like to reiterate or tell you perhaps for the first time. This series, Let's Talk About Health, is really designed to be interactive, even though we are virtual. By that, we mean go in, as Catherine mentioned, and type any questions that you might have, and Angela will try to address as many of those as time will permit. We do ask that you ask general questions, as we won't be able to give specific diagnoses or talk to issues that relate to individuals. Please know, again, that this conversation is being recorded, and I'll share more information later about how you can see the slides again or hear the recording again if you might like to do that. And thirdly, you'll see a slide here that's called Ask Me 3. We have tasked all of our health conversations in this vein, and this is geared to enabling patients to have better dialogue with their providers and also to remember the information that you've been given. Sometimes it's very difficult to recall what you were said in a sometimes stressful environment. So there are three questions that we suggest that any patient ask of their physician when you are experiencing what seems to be a problem. Number one, what is the main problem? What is my problem? What do I need to do about it? And why is it important for me to do this? As Angela speaks, she will give you an example of how this might work if you have a medical concern. And with that, Angela, let me turn this over to you.
Well, hello, and thank you, Donna, for that warm welcome, and greetings to everyone. Happy afternoon. Today, we are talking about building a better plate for diabetes prevention and also management. And there are three things that I love, but sometimes they're not great for my waistline. That is fat, salt, and sugar. And so we're going to address those. And when we think about diabetes, I'm going to give you an example of using an Ask Me 3. So I have a dark patch in the back of my neck, Doc. What do you think that could be? And that could be a sign of prediabetes or insulin resistance. That's sometimes the first sign. It is a dark patch that looks like you didn't wash the back of your neck, but that is a sign. And prediabetes is a condition where your blood sugar is higher than normal, but not high enough to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And what do you need to do to prevent diabetes? In order to lower your risk of diabetes, we need to lose at least 5% of our body weight and get active at least 150 minutes a week. And then why is this important? Prediabetes is the one step before you're diagnosed with diabetes. But when you're living with prediabetes, it is a precursor to stroke, heart disease, and neuropathy, and that's nerve pain. So we want to prevent diabetes as much as possible. So let's get into it. Donna already mentioned about how many millions of Americans have diabetes, but let's just look in our state of Maryland. So roughly about 488,000 people have diabetes in the state of Maryland, but 1.5 million of those have prediabetes. We already know that it will take roughly about the next 5 years of that 15 to 30% of people that have prediabetes today will develop diabetes. And so 80% of the people living with prediabetes don't even know about it and they're not aware of it. And so I want to make sure you know what you can do to prevent it today. And so what does prediabetes and diabetes mean? So prediabetes, you went to your doctor for a standard diabetes test just to see. And prediabetes, your A1C is either 5.7 to 6.4. So it gives it a range. It could be your fasting value when you go to the doctor. It could be anywhere from 100 to 125. But then you're diagnosed with diabetes if your A1C is greater than 6.5 or your fasting is greater than 126. And so are you at risk? This is what you need to ask yourself. And you can ask your doctor every year to get tested. If you have prediabetes, you are at risk of type 2 diabetes. If you're overweight, if you're over the age of 45, if you have a parent, a brother, a sister with type 2 diabetes, you're at risk. If you're less active, so you're not as active as you'd like and you're less active than 3 times a week, your waistline is the key. So I want to make sure that this is a task. I'm going to make sure everybody, when they get off the call, you're going to figure out how you're going to measure your waistline. But if it's greater than 40 for men, you're at risk for diabetes and heart disease. And it's for women if you're greater than 35. If you ever had gestational diabetes or a baby greater than 9 pounds, and if you are of color, you are at risk. So African American, Asian American, Pacific Islander. And then if you were ever mentioned, your doctor ever mentioned to you about fatty liver disease, that also puts you at risk of type 2 diabetes. So there are ways for us to prevent this. We can have lifestyle changes such as diet and exercise. That basically means eating well and moving your body. You can join a diabetes prevention program. And if you have type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes, you can join a diabetes self-management and education program. That can also lower your risk of complications. So let's talk about fad diets versus lifestyle. Everybody, there's so many diets out there, and only a couple diets out of here have actually been shown to lower your risk of diabetes. Now, nope, it's not keto. Nope, it's not Atkins. Nope, it's not paleo. It actually is a Mediterranean diet, the low-fat diet, DASH diet, and vegetarian or vegan. Those are the ones that have been shown to actually lower your risk of diabetes. And you may say, well, why do those work? It's because there are certain things in there that help you really lower your blood sugar. So when you are just eating whatever you want, what happens is your lipids can be high, your blood pressure can be high, your blood sugar is just slightly elevated. You may have some insulin resistance, that's that patch in the back of your neck, or you could have excessive insulin production, which you really have a low blood sugar after you eat. This is the recipe for disaster, and it's putting you right towards type 2 diabetes. So we're going to solve that. There are some nutrients that taste good, but not so great for us. That's saturated fat, sodium, and simple carbohydrates. So we're going to break those down. So your nutrients for disaster, saturated fat, let's start with that one. It is solid at room temperature. So I'm going to give you a good example. You fry bacon on the stove, you come back to it, there's a white film that's right there in that pan, that is saturated fat. And that's the same thing that it will do in your arteries. Animal fat, any of that animal fat like chicken skin or having steak with that extra fat, that is saturated fat. But that can cause high cholesterol. Our goal is really to not eat more than less than 10% of our total caloric intake should be from saturated fat. And I'll break down a little bit more about grams. So these are the food items that contain saturated fat. Don't they all look good? We've all enjoyed them. And from butter to pizza to my aunt's pineapple side down cake. It could be your sausage or bacon or fried chicken. But all these things contain saturated fat, and we want to make sure we eat less of that. And that's why even vegetarian and vegan actually lower your risk of having diabetes because you are not consuming a lot of the meat and saturated fat items. The next one is sodium. And so you said, what does that have to do with anything? Blood pressure and diabetes can go hand in hand. So we want to make sure these sodium is found in a wide variety of products, but we just consume too much of it. So the average American takes in about 3,300 milligrams. What does that mean? That is roughly 2 teaspoons, but we're only recommended about a teaspoon a day. It's about, a teaspoon is about the pinky, just the tip of my pinky. And we want to make sure that we have less sodium. We also want to make sure if we have existing hypertension, it's no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. So reading your labels are really important. Where we find sodium, of course, would be our soups and luncheon and deli meats. It would be our packaged items that are in cans or bottles like salad dressing. It could be also our vegetable juices. And I know that's an old picture of a TV dinner, but guess what? They still are the same, all those frozen meals, because they have preservatives, but they also can have a large amount of sodium. And so for simple carbohydrates, that's the other item. So we went over saturated fat, sodium, and now we're at simple carbohydrates. We want to avoid extra added sugar to our items, and then also they provide extra excessive calories that we consume. And the average American takes in about 22 teaspoons of added sugar a day. That's roughly about 350 calories. Now, if we save that, guess what? We would be able to maintain or lose weight. It's also low in fiber and can really increase your insulin production. And over time, that your pancreas just gets tired of making a lot of insulin. So that's something to be mindful. The goal is to aim no more than 100 calories per day of sugar. And so this is where you find your simple carbohydrates. I know it can be sneaky, but you have agave nectar. I know people like it, but it still is a simple carbohydrate, which is added sugar. Brown sugar, fructose, evaporated cane juice, cane sugar, maltose, malt syrup, maple syrup, raw sugar, sucrose, and regular syrup. These are all things where you find your added sugar. So be mindful of that when you're reading your labels. Make sure it's not the first, the second, or the third ingredient when you read your labels. So your recipe for success is really making dietary changes. You want to make sure that you're eating less saturated fat, eating less salt, and eating less added sugar. But you also want to get active. And so that adds to your quality of life. And how we actually do that is eating healthy. What do we put on our plate? And so half of your plate should be non-starchy vegetables. A quarter of your plate should be your protein, and your other quarter of your plate should be a grain. You can have fruit too. Even though fruit has natural sugar, I always say fruit is nature's candy. You can have fruit, enjoy it, because it does have fiber as well. And then your beverage is water. And so when we think about all our nutrients, we talked about the bad nutrients. Now we need to talk about the good nutrients. The good nutrients include our carbohydrates, our protein, and our fat, which come a wide variety of things. When you follow a fad diet, oftentimes they remove a complete food group, but each one of these provide great nutrients for you for balance. And so where we find our carbohydrates are good for you. They provide fiber, they do provide starch, and some of them do provide sugar. But we want to focus more on the fiber and the starch. So you find things that have fiber, your fruits and veggies, your whole grains, your beans, and your nuts. Your starch would be, of course, your potatoes and corn and peas, bread, crackers, chips, and cookies. But they're not all created equal. And then we make sure that sugar we have less often. That's, of course, our donuts and cakes and pies and cookies. And so fruits and vegetables are really important for you to include every single day. Try to get 2 half plates of vegetables every single day. And then fruit, try to get at least 2 servings. This is a great way for you to add fiber, but also we call them those phytonutrients to help you fight against not only cancer, but also heart disease. And so we want to make sure that you include that for a variety of colors. And when you think about protein, it should only be the palm of your hand. We should try to eat less protein because that is also helpful, reducing your risk of diabetes. You may choose things that are very lean, being chicken or turkey, lean beef or pork, seafood and eggs. Your dairy should be very low in fat, so 1%, no higher than 2%. Beans and peas should be a part of your diet, soy products, nuts, and seeds. And so for fats, we're going to aim for those monounsaturated fats and those poly. Remember, they are not solid at room temperature. We're going to eat less of our saturated fat, and we want to completely avoid all trans fats. We choose a monounsaturated fats being olive oil and avocado, our oils being olive oil and canola and peanut, and then a wide variety of nuts. You should have about a quarter cup of nuts a day. If you're not allergic, that's so important. But it does help you not only give you a good source of protein, but also a healthy fat. And then poly is also good too. So fish twice a week. And walnuts and of course flax are also good things to include in your diet. And when we're thinking about fiber, make sure you aim for 25 grams for women and 38 grams for men. It keeps you satisfied, it keeps you regular, but also it can help you with weight management as well. And when you're trying to fix your plate, portion control is really important. So we think about our measuring cups and scales, but when you think about your portion size, use your hands. So for vegetables and fruit, about a cup, that is about your fist size. For meat, it is about your palm, and any fat is no larger than your thumb size. Think about for mayo and dressing, and even any type of spreads you like for sandwiches. And healthy cooking. This could be a great way for you just to say, okay, I'm going to start with just making sure I bake, broil, roast, and grill more often instead of having things fried. Have things fried no more than once or twice a week because remember, that will be additional saturated fat. And you can use your air fryer because I know a lot of people like to use air fryers too as well. That's a good way to have a cooking method. And dining out. Dining out should really be occasional, once or twice a week, but you want to make sure you look at the menu and choose those healthy options that we just reviewed, making sure things are baked and broiled, roasted, or grilled, make sure sauces are on the side, and try to make sure you ask for a side salad or a vegetable with your meal. And when we're cruising through that grocery store, think about using your outskirts of the grocery store. So we go to the produce section first, we go to our lean protein, we head over to our dairy, we may get some yogurt, or we may do a milk substitute or alternative. And then we turn right up and may get some bread. But we want to make sure that it is whole grain and make sure it has fiber. So you always want to make sure you have a half of your cart should be your fruits and veggies. So more of your cart should be filled with fruits and veggies instead of some of that junk food. So food is so expensive nowadays, and we have to really try to stretch our budget. So write a list before you go and stick to it. Think about meal ideas throughout the week so you can make sure your list has everything on it. Save with store brands. Also use coupons. Coupons can be a great way. And then also be mindful of what you're buying in bulk. And watch out for perishable items. You want to make sure if they are starting to go bad, use your freezer as a source. And I do buy frozen fish. It is a great way to have it. And a lot of times the grocery store, they actually unthaw the fish before they put it in the case. And instead of buying a lot of bottled water, use tap water. So when we're making our portions, we just want to make sure we have a healthy plate. Remember, half a plate is your veggies. A quarter of your plate is your protein. And then you want to have a grain source, and that is a quarter of your plate. So we have a wide variety of plates here. It shows some broccoli. I have some scallops and tomatoes, and then I have a little whole grain rice, and it has some mango in it to give it some flavor. And then even for lunch, having if you made chicken salad with a half of having salad with it, you may have some toast or crackers, whole grain toast or crackers, and then you have some mango. And even the other plate has, I would say, a turkey burger and mashed sweet potatoes. I love mashed sweet potatoes. And then having your squash or zucchini is a great option. And then you may have a side of oranges for your dessert. And then I sometimes people say, can I eat a pork chop? Yeah, this is grilled. Now, I didn't say fried pork chop with gravy. I said a grilled pork chop, a roasted pork chop would be fine. And then you have your carrots and broccoli and cauliflower. And cornbread is a grain. You may not think about that, but it is a whole grain. And then I do show a plate with string beans and mushrooms, having a half a plate of that, some corn, and also having some roast chicken. So we want to make sure we get active. Activity is really one of the biggest keys. And they said the desk job was actually one of the reasons why more people developed diabetes. It's because we are not active as much. So you want to get 150 minutes a week. And why we want to get active, it really does help you lose weight. It lowers your risk of heart disease. It reduces the need for medication, and also reduces depression and anxiety. It can make you feel good because it releases endorphins. It gives you energy. It helps you with your well-being, your sleep quality, and it also helps with mobility. As we age, we want to make sure that we really get active. And so we want to keep it fun, and I want to make sure that we get to our questions. So I'm almost done. We want to make sure we keep it fun. So find activity that you really enjoy, and there is programs for you to join. You have prediabetes, there's a prediabetes program. They have shown that joining a lifestyle change program like the prediabetes program can actually be more powerful than going on medication or not doing anything alone. So we recommend 7% of your weight loss. It's 150 minutes of moderate activity, but you're doing it together with a team. And you're also doing it together as a group. And it's a year-long program. So your BMI can be 25 or higher. You want to make sure that it's coaches that are teaching you. It's in a group format. It's either in person or telemedicine. And they cover nutrition and physical activity and self-monitoring. It also help you really figure out your lifestyle and those healthy habits. And that's what we really, really love about this program. It can lower your risk of diabetes, it help you lose weight, improve your eating habits and healthy behaviors, improve your quality of life, your blood pressure even. So some people are going through the program, they lose the weight, and guess what? They can come off their blood pressure medicine. They can improve their sleep, and it also does help with healthcare costs. So you can join a program either for diabetes or prediabetes, and University of Maryland has both. They have a diabetes prevention program and a diabetes self-management and education program if you have type 2 diabetes. So the key for recipe success is really for you to aim for 3 whole grains daily. Make sure that you have 3 cups of beans, legumes each and every week. Have a half a plate of vegetables twice a day. So lunch and dinner, or you can throw some veggies in that breakfast of yours. Have at least 3 servings of fruit a day, and a serving of fruit is 1 piece. It fits in the palm of your hand. To have only 6 to 8 ounces of lean protein a day, and then have lower amounts of dairy. Dairy is associated with lowering your risk of hypertension and also heart disease. Snack on nuts, and then drink water. A lot of us are dehydrated, and that also can impact your A1C. So stay hydrated, and then just sprinkle on spice for flavor. Watch out for that salt, and make sure we walk or play for 150 minutes a week. That's 20 minutes a day. So your diabetes journey can be controlled. You can really thrive and live with diabetes. It does not have to be this daunting task, like, oh my gosh, complications have to happen to me. It doesn't. It can be avoided, but you're not alone. So people that have prediabetes, it's 1 in 3 individuals have prediabetes, and 1 in 8 individuals have diabetes. Type 2 diabetes can be prevented, and then all you need is a great team to really partner with you to manage your diabetes and realize that we can meet your goals together. So it is time for questions and answers, and I am going to turn it back over to Donna to facilitate our question period.
Angela, thank you very much. Although I must say you have disturbed my menu for the entire week, but that's okay. Every time I talk to you, I modify things just a little bit more, but I'm grateful to you. We do have some questions, and I'll try to go a little bit in order here. Some are related to one another, so I'll try to group those as well. Who should monitor their glucose every day? Is that for people with diabetes and they know it, or what do you do for people with prediabetes?
So that's a great question. So if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes or gestational diabetes, you should be monitoring your blood sugar. And your doctor or a diabetes educator can guide you on how often you should be taking it based off your medication. But there are people that have prediabetes that we're actually seeing what's going on with their trends. A lot of people are wearing continuous glucose monitors, and those continuous glucose monitors can really tell you how food and physical activity affects you. Everyone is different. And so we do sometimes trial people with a continuous glucose monitor, even when they have prediabetes, so they can see what foods affect them. So for example, people may say, I can't eat grapes, but what if I eat grapes with some nuts? Does that make a big difference? And it can. So those combinations of foods can affect your blood sugar different, and we can encourage you to find some monitoring every now and again when we're making these lifestyle changes.
There's a question about medications and how they work, and there's one particular mention, Mounjaro, I guess it's the way. Can you speak to that?
Oh, sure, I can. So diabetes medications come in different classes. And so Mounjaro is a part of that class of we call a GLP-1. Now, a GLP-1, it works on the gut, it works on the liver, and it works on your pancreas. So it tells your gut to slow down the digestion. It tells your liver stop making so much sugar, especially after you eat, and tells your pancreas to make more insulin after you eat. And so Mounjaro is one of the brands of a GLP-1. GLP-1s are typically injectables. It can be taken once a day or once a week. And it can help with blood glucose management, but also helps with weight loss and really helps with satiety. So satiety is really one of the biggest things that as we gain weight, we find that our gut is missing some of those gut hormones, and those GLP-1s add that gut hormone back kind of into our system in order for us to get satisfied and stop eating so much. So Mounjaro is one of the newer drugs that's out, but there are a whole class of drugs. And if you talk to your doctor about it, they'll be able to tell you if you're a candidate for it.
That's great. How do we know, or how does one get screened, or when should one get screened for diabetes?
So when we, screening should take place, anybody that is 40 or older, if you are at risk. So I went through all those risk things, but I would say, especially if you have a strong family history, I am an example of that strong family history. I have my father, both my grandparents, my aunt, they all have had diabetes. And so I decided, and I talked to my doctor, that I need to get screened annually. That will be a simple blood test, and I also monitor my A1C to see if it's creeping up, to see if there's something I can do about it. If you also are experiencing any signs or symptoms, so if you're thirsty, you're urinating more often, you're tired, you're excessively hungry, you lose a lot of weight in a period of time and you weren't trying, you need to ask your doctor or go to the doctor and say, hey, can you test me for diabetes to see what my blood sugar is? Because it's important that you know more people are walking around with it and don't know about it.
What about extra virgin olive oil? You spoke to several olive oils. What about that?
Oh, extra virgin olive oil is a great choice. It is a monounsaturated fat. And you remember, all the olive oils actually just have a different flavor profile. So some of them just are for tasting. Some of them are used for cooking, being on to see how fast it burns. But olive oil in general is a great source. Canola oil is another good source, grapeseed oil, and even avocado oil. You may see that on your cells now, but these are great sources of oil. And then I always think about, what is the source? Where did the oil come from? And why I say that is because you want to think about the processing of it all. If we think about olive oil, olives are oily naturally, so they can extract the oil very easily. Even seeing your peanut oil, that's easy to extract. Canola oil would be a little bit more difficult. So just think about that when you're in the grocery aisle, when you're choosing. But olive oil is a great source of a monounsaturated fat.
You gave some great measures on both sodium and examples on sodium, much appreciated, and how much fiber to consume each day. How do you measure really your fiber? So if you eat an orange or whatever it is, how do you know how much fiber you're actually getting?
You know what? You have to, unless you're a dietitian, you really are using your labels, but also tools. So there is a tool I like called Calorie King. And Calorie King is an app that's available, but also you can just go on the website and look it up. And they do also have a book. They also have a list of fiber. So they will give you a list of fiber found in even spinach or a baked potato. But your labels would be the other source. So when you're using anything that has a label, you want to make sure you look down underneath those carbohydrates. It should have dietary fiber. And there are certain things that should have dietary fiber in them, such as your breads and your pastas, your rice. Those things you should have more with dietary fiber, especially if you're trying to lower your risk of diabetes. I will say fiber comes along with fluid as well. So I didn't mention about that. When you're trying to increase your fiber, make sure that you're drinking plenty of fluid so it doesn't you don't have any bowel issues trying to consume all this fiber. But use your labels for fiber, and you want to look for 3 grams or higher on your labels.
Thank you. So a couple of people have asked, where can we get into the DPP program, and asked about specific hospitals within the system. And somebody else asked about how these programs put together. These programs are brought to you from the University of Maryland Medical System community health teams across the system. Upper Chesapeake has a great array of community education programs. I'm responding to a specific question about that hospital system. And I'm going to give some names here. Vicki Enzer-Bands runs the community health, and Kim Tice, Theis, is one of her key lieutenants. They can talk to you about any of the programs up there, and they are very happy to engage anyone in a DPP or any diabetes self-management program. As well, we are working on creating an opportunity for any of the programs that are offered system-wide to be available in any of the communities that we serve. So stay tuned for that. Somebody said, since you're a nutritionist and a dietitian specialist, how many calories should I be eating a day to lose 15 pounds?
Oh, well, guess what? I can't give you that because I would need some more background to tell you exactly how many calories you should eat. But I do want to make sure I give you some guidance. So when we're thinking about trying to lose weight, it is roughly a negative 500 calories a day in order for us to get to 1 pound of weight loss per week. Now, you can achieve that negative 500 calories a day through physical activity, or you could simply cut out of what you're currently eating. You can subtract 250 to 500 calories based off of something that you constantly eat that's adding extra calories. It could be that favorite Starbucks drink that you have every morning that may be 500 plus calories. Just cutting that alone may be helpful. It could be your spread of mayonnaise. A little bit of mayonnaise is about 100 calories. If you like a pat of butter, that's 100 calories. It could be easy, just a little takeaway. So I always say divide it up. Take away 250 calories from your normal eating pattern and then get active, at least 200 and burn 250 calories of activity. And I'm so glad that, Donna mentioned about the diabetes prevention program, and we are working hard to offer that diabetes prevention program across all the system. And even I did, when they sent out the slides, you'll be able to go onto the website and be able to get some more details regarding our diabetes prevention program. But we want to make sure it's available for everybody. But in that program, they also show you ways for you to cut back on calories. And I mentioned to you about low fat. Lowering your fat intake. Now you don't have to go completely no fat, but lowering your calorie intake can actually help when you lower the fat, because 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories. And so if you were to cut back on some of that fat, you'll be able to get to your weight loss goals. So that's a little trick that a dietitian will make sure they tell you about, trying to cut back your calories a day. But talk to somebody or make an appointment with a nutritionist to really go over your exact amount of caloric intake you should have per day.
Canned goods are something we all find in our pantries. And we know that they contain a lot of sodium as preservatives. Is there a way to make them safe to eat, safer to eat?
Yeah, so canned goods, I think sometimes they get a really bad rap. But I will tell you, some of them actually have more nutrients in them compared to the fresh items. So, for example, tomatoes. Canned tomatoes actually give you more lycopene and vitamin C compared to the fresh counterpart of a regular tomato. Same with peaches. It has more vitamin C in it being canned. I will tell you, for vegetables, all you have to do is rinse your vegetables in a little tap water, and that actually gets rid of at least a quarter to a half amount of sodium, and then you would just cook in a little tap. And so those are some ways that you can get rid of the extra sodium. You can also buy no salt added canned vegetables. And then my alternative, if you say, well, you know what, I don't want to deal with that, you can go frozen. Because frozen actually does not, and unless it has a sauce to it, they typically do not have the sodium added to it. It's usually frozen just the way it is, from the farm to the freezing device, and then they usually freeze it right away.
Back to the idea of sugars. Someone says, I see so many foods that have added sugars. Is there a safe amount of added sugar?
Yes, so we try to make sure that it's 100 calories or less and added sugar. I know it's not that much, but what I would say is, when you're looking at your labels, make sure that when you look at the ingredients, make sure it's not number 1 for sugar, number 2 for sugar, or number 3. So it's not listed in that order. When we look at the ingredients on a label, the order tells us how much is actually in the product. And then I also want to say, if you're living with diabetes, sugar substitutes can be a good option. I know there can be a little, controversy out there about sugar substitutes, but sugar substitutes allow you to have a sweeter flavor without the added sugar, but also without the added calories. And so that is something that you can consider. And then if you just add sugar to your coffee or your tea, just try to cut back. I typically use those little cubes. I know it may seem a little fancy, but I know exactly how many calories are in them, and I know exactly how many carbs in them. So if I have tea, I may say, I'm just going to put 1 brown sugar cube in here, and that's it. And that is only a teaspoon. And so it allows me to control the portion size. So really, roughly, it's about 100 calories a day for added sugar, no more than that.
Great. One last question. So I know, and our audience doesn't know, that Angela is also an amazing cook. So there are a couple of questions here that I'll group together about seasonings. And, what do you use? There are many salt substitutes out there, and someone mentioned one in particular, Kingsford Original, no salt, all-purpose seasoning. What gives us the greatest flavor without adding a lot of sodium.
Well, you were already on the market when you said spices. So spices give a great flavor. I also would say, think about your sweet spices being cinnamon and nutmeg, and those things can also provide, allspice can provide sweetness when you want sweetness. If you're looking for something savory, things like garlic powder and onion powder, and even having rosemary and thyme. These also can be great herbs to add. And then I also like to use aromatics. And what I mean by aromatics, I mean cooking down onions or garlic. How you start a dish adds the flavor. So when we think about, we call this word called Trinity. When you're starting something, especially with a little bit of olive oil and garlic and onion, diced onion and peppers or carrots, and when you start to actually cook that down, that releases flavors. Right then and there, you can add different vegetables to it. You may add lean proteins, and that really has a great flavor. Also, sometimes people do use stock. So if you make your own stock at home, I know I'm getting you all to cook a little bit more, but if you use your own stock at home, that also can be a great way for you to flavor things without missing the salt. And if you use salt-free products, make sure you talk to your doctor. If you have any kidney problems, it is sometimes replaced with potassium, and so we may not recommend it. We may just recommend the flat out garlic powder or onion powder or having rosemary, thyme, or Italian seasoning without any added potassium.
So one of our listeners who obviously knows a lot about this says he agrees with you. Fresh herbs are the best indeed. Start a herb patch in a little pot and go from there.
Yes.
Angela, thank you so much for all of this great information. I want to say thank you on my behalf, but thank you on behalf of all of the rest of us. Several have asked about the slides. You are right, viewers. There was so much content in these slides, and you can see this recording again in about 48 hours if you go to www.umms.org/let's talk. All of the prior sessions are there as well, and you can see that list of topics that have gone before, including diabetes from Angela a year ago, last November. So you can look at any of those things. And last month was sudden cardiac arrest. We've got COVID vaccine. We've got pharmacy and medication, colon cancer, et cetera, et cetera. Healthy aging also related to this. So go to that site if you'd like to see it again. It also goes up on YouTube at a later point. And then next month, once a month, usually on the third Wednesday, and it will be the third Wednesday in December, we'll be talking about toy safety, gift safety, and just keeping us safe during the holidays and throughout the year. So come again and join us. Thank you all for joining us today. And Angela, thank you again. Comment here. This was simply an awesome session. Thank you very much.